Welcome to another episode of the Office Altering Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, hopefully you'll become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions and creator of this revolutionary podcast. You can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. Okay, so here we go. We're talking about technology. We're talking about automation. We're talking about follow-up. But guess what? In order for all of that to work, guess what you need to have in place? Drumroll, the biggest headache for law firms that I hear consistently, especially in our law firm admin bootcamp, how to simplify intake for your clients and automate the data flows in your practice. Intake is consistently, the team members say it takes so much time. It's very difficult to get implemented. It's absolutely difficult to get automated. So I am so excited today to have Wouter from DecisionVault here. And Wouter, I'm not even going to butcher your last name. I want you to say it for our members. So
sure. Wouter IJgosse.
Yes. Beautiful. Oh, it just rolls so seamlessly off your tongue. I absolutely love it. So I'm really excited because I kept hearing, and for many of our listeners here, they probably are very aware of DecisionVault. Wouter is the founder and creator of DecisionVault.com. And I kept hearing about DecisionVault. And then I find out that you live here in the Denver proper area. And you and I met for coffee, lunch, gosh, it seems like many moons ago, and talked about your process. I have existing and prospective clients and members of my law firm, Admin Bootcamp, constantly talking about DecisionVault. And I wanted you to come here today and talk to our members. First of all, give them a backstory. Give our listeners a backstory of what inspired you to create DecisionVault.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So DecisionVault grew out of my wife's estate planning practice. So in the beginning of 2020, she had a matter in her practice where a client wanted to nominate 37 beneficiaries. And it's of course okay for the client to nominate however many beneficiaries they want and kind of build up their plan how they would like. But the result of this was for my wife, Julia, that she had to take notes of all these names and get all these names entered into her draft platform, pulling them out of her meeting notes, out of emails back and forth with the client, re-entering them into her draft platform, and then being able to generate the documents for this client, right? And this particular matter kind of made us ask the question that, hey, somebody ought to have figured it out. It's 2020. Why are we still copy pasting this stuff over? And as I come from a product and technology background, so I jumped in and started looking into this. And what I found when I tried to pick up the usual suspects, pick up Clio, pick up Practice Planner, try out all these different practice management tools that advertise that they integrate with draft platforms, and try to make it work. And what I found was that, yes, there are integrations, but the big limitation is on the intake forms that are not strong enough to capture all the information to begin with. Typically, when you have the context already sitting in your practice management tool, then yes, you can push a button and you can pull them into your draft platform. That works great. Sending an intake form to clients and having them easily complete that and enter all the context you might want to capture, that is not self-evident and that doesn't work. And that's why I ultimately started building DecisionVault, which now has grown quite some arms and legs.
Quite some arms and legs, understatement. So if I'm understanding this, does it start when the client service coordinator, intake coordinator is answering the phone in regards to the intake process and getting it? Or is it really once the client is starting to hire for service?
It's really that second part. So I would say the terms get used kind of interchangeably, but intake breaks down into sort of lead capture, which we can do into like all sorts of ways, right? With widgets on the website or through like the phone services. There's lead capture, and then there's sort of the actual data capture. And DecisionVault focuses on that second part. So it will work. It doesn't replace your practice management tool. It works alongside your practice management tool and your document automation tool and draft platform. So it kind of sits in the middle, and then your client like works through the portal, can work on the questionnaire kind of over time. And that's where it focuses. So like on the start of the process, that typically is handled however the law firm handles that right now, right? The client calls in, they create something in their practice management tool, then they might send a link to get the client started on DecisionVault, etc. So it's sort of comes a little later on in the process.
Great. So they can actually start it early on with the client before getting in the room with the attorney. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, and that's how most law firms use it. And so there's a couple of ways that those existing intake forms of your practice management tool, how they fall short, right? The first being that like they only kind of work in the intake part of the project. And you would say, yes, of course, it's an intake form. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? But that's not the only place where you have data capture. Like thinking back to my wife's matter with 37 beneficiaries, like part of those people were kind of like filled in on her like fillable PDF. And then she had a meeting with the client, and then more people came up. So typically you see with these intake forms of practice management tools, like the client can start on them, they can maybe save them. But once they submit, that's it. Like toothpaste is out of the tube. There's no going back and reopening and adding more info later. So that's where the DecisionVault functions like a portal. So like you can keep working with your client on the same like set of information and keep adding info. But typically law firms start doing that. Like they send it before the initial meeting with the attorney, and then can kind of build on it to follow.
And then when it comes time for document creation, talk to us a little bit about, so I'm already hearing saving time on the front end with the support team member handling the phone, having the client enter that information. To your point, 35 beneficiaries. So often we get spelling errors, naming conventions, things of that nature. So probably cuts down on that in the beginning. And then by the time the attorney reviews to clarify and verify, we can just make certain dotting our I's, crossing our T's. Now comes time for drafting. Talk to us a little bit about how it incorporates with the various different softwares that are out there. And by and large, in estate planning, we'll talk about first.
Yeah. So you can, I would split that universe in two. There's the document automation tools where you build the template, and then from DecisionVault, you can push variables into those fields and those templates, right? So Gavel, Woodpecker, FormStack. This summer, we're looking into Knackly and Hot Docs. So you can get, like, if you have templates in those tools, you can push your variables into there and help, like, that way generate documents. We also interact with Interactive Legal and with Wealth Counsel and Elder Counsel. So you can, like, transfer the contacts over into those tools. Typically, people try to, like, can we send more information? It's like, no, it's the contacts, but that's okay, because that's the part that takes the most time. Like, if you have, there's ways in DecisionVault to kind of capture meeting notes during a design meeting, etc. That's more detailed. But if you have a list there of what the different people in the different roles are, it doesn't take much time to replicate that in the draft platform. The thing that takes time is, like, create all these contexts to begin with, and then, like, proof that you've entered it correctly, right? So those tools. And then I know that there are some more draft platforms out there. Some are built on Action Step. We have an integration with Action Step. So if that's a path people use, then, like, we do support that. You can sync the contacts into specific roles onto the Action Step matter, and then you can use it in the draft platforms built on Action Step as well.
Great. And so tell us what your estate planning law firms are saying. Where did they see the saving of time, frustration, error, energy? What are some of the benefits that you're hearing with DecisionVault?
Yeah, first up, it's like people all of a sudden get compliments on their intake process. Like in the past, like people complain about the fillable PDF or doing stuff on paper, or like some form that is the longest form on the internet that just keeps on going. So now they kind of get positive feedback from clients saying this was so easy. Like I can add all these things myself, and so that's a benefit. It cuts down time, like I said, both on re-entering information as well as like then proofing that how you re-entered it is correct. And since we've captured information sort of in a very granular way, we're now starting to enable automations that were kind of never possible before, right? Like things people try to build certain automations in let's say a Clio, but then the Clio form couldn't capture it in the right way, so you can't really do anything with it. So one of those is DecisionVault was initially very much focused when I started prototyping it out on contact gathering, contact syncing, and then I had a whole group of pilot law firms that I tried to get them to start using it for real, and they said, but what about assets? Like, okay, what about assets? And I learned that asset intake is an area with almost even more copy pasting that goes on in the contact side, because there's just no good way to do it. Like people typically put a text field on the intake form, and then we hope that the client fills in the information that we need. And when they do, then like the firm staff gets to like copy paste that around into some Excel structure. Like no more. Like DecisionVault supports financial intake out of the box. And like at the touch of a button, you get a nicely formatted Excel sheet. So like those kind of things are like invaluable in terms of like saving time, and just the result is better than what you were doing before, both for the client and the firm staff.
So if I hear you correctly, you're kind of getting rid of that old school personal information form that people used to call the PIF. I've seen some that are 13 pages long. And
I've seen longer ones.
You've seen longer ones.
Oh, yeah.
And that's always a barrier of entry. Like clients so excited, they have beautiful experience from the guy or gal answering the phone. They get them scheduled for the appointment. Then they're like, what's the question? What's next? Here's your homework. I'm going to send you this intake form. And then it's 13 plus pages long. And then they get paralyzed. They freeze. And then they don't get it back. And I have many law firms still. This used to be a teaching from some certain organizations that if they don't fill it out, they're not serious. So you should cancel their appointment, which I don't believe in. I'm like, no, they're completely paralyzed and overwhelmed. That's why they're not completing this.
Yeah, that's right. And part of the problem there is that financial intake, right? Because probably the 13 pages, like 9 of them are like different types of assets, half of which the client will not have. But of course, it switches from client to client, which 50% they don't have. So yeah, like the tool has some built-in capabilities to first ask the client, like, which of these things do you have? Yes, no, I have a car, I have life insurance, I have a bank account. And then we'll show you like that as sort of a fill-in field. And the other thing that's going on in why the clients might not fill that in, number one, it's too many pages. They just feel overwhelmed. I'll do that later. And then later never comes. The second is it's not personalized. And the third is like, I haven't met you yet. Like, I don't want to fill this in. Maybe it's okay. And this is a thing that I have to keep repeating also to DecisionVault trial users is like, if the client doesn't want to tell you that, that's okay. Like, it's more important that they kind of fill in what they like will fill in, because we're not trying to do the thing where we send them one form, and if the form is not complete, we don't have all the info. No, it's a portal. They can come back to this. If they fill in, we see all sorts of patterns of how people, especially fill in the asset intake. They say like, I have a house. Okay, great. Fine. You can have a conversation with that client, and then they afterwards can say, that it is at 123 Main Street and that there's like $200,000 on the mortgage and the value is $500,000, right? Whatever, you can fill it in later. It's okay. So yeah, I think that question kind of breaks down into different underlying reasons of why people might not want to fill it in. And the other thing is like, everyone lives on their phone nowadays, right? A fillable PDF on a phone, good luck with that. So like DecisionVault, I would not want to be filling all this in on a mobile phone, but a surprisingly high number of people are doing it.
Really?
Yeah, and that's okay. It works. Like we've built it that way.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, I mean, right now, listeners, especially our attorney listeners, our team member listeners, they have to deal with this 13-page intake form. Here's your confirmation. Here's your validation. Bring this podcast episode back to your attorney and share that this is the main reason why we want. I love that you say, because so, especially in estate planning, I will hear all the time, my clients don't really love technology. My clients get overwhelmed with technology. And you're already telling us, hogwash, they're filling it out on their mobile phone.
Oh, yeah. And also the thing about like older clients don't want to use this, right? Like, sure, there are some older clients who don't want to use it. But for about as many of those sort of feedback points I also hear, oh, this 80-year-old I got in there, filled in the whole thing, is super happy with it. So like you will still have a certain portion of the audience who want to like fill in something on paper, or maybe to do it over the phone with a paralegal, right? And then afterwards you can like run an export to make sure that you got all the spellings right and all the date of births right and all that stuff, right? But it's a smaller proportion than you might think, who doesn't want to interact with the technology.
So talk to us about other areas of law. I know I have some family law attorneys that have spoken very highly of your platform. What other areas of law do you serve right now?
Well, we ended up starting in estate planning corner just because of like my wife's law firm. But what we found is that the estate planners have like this very granular data need, and then it needs to go into these other tools. So now that we have that working, it will work for other areas of law as well. And we're slowly getting into those. Usually when you have an estate planning lawyer who's paired up with like a business law lawyer or family lawyer. So the tool is really good at like gathering lots of context, gathering lots of financial info, and just in general, like asking questions to a client and then interacting that with other tools. So yeah, like probably sky's the limit. I don't think it would be something for big law. I don't think it's something for like maybe not quite yet into like employment law, etc., where you have like these massive logic trees of like what happened and then was this person there or not. Like you have lots of those conditional logic. We don't really support that much to that depth, but it probably will work for business, all kinds of business intake, family law, bankruptcy law. Yeah.
And so what I love too is that if it does have many different scenarios, fact patterns, need information. Yes, I own a house. Yes, I have this, but I don't know exactly all the data and the information. It parks, and then they can go back and pick it up and enter the information, or you all can in the law firm during the client journey, correct?
That's right. Yes, that's right.
So what's the best way for our listeners to find out more if this is a good use for their practice? How do they get a hold of you?
Sure. Yeah. So DecisionVault.com is our website. There's a product tour page where we have a couple of small, short, I shouldn't say small, but short. That's the word. Short clips that kind of highlight like certain aspects of the product that could help you. And at the bottom of that page, you can like watch either a pre-recorded demo or you can book a demo session with me.
Oh, great. Yeah. And your integration, you're with Clio, Lawmatics, LawKiss, Action Step, Practice Panther, you mentioned earlier, My Case, EstateWorks, FileLine. I mean, the sky's the limit. Keep of the different CRMs.
Yeah, so some of those are that you just mentioned are planned, right? So Keep and Filevine we're building out
Okay.
this year. But yeah, we already have a solid base with like Locus and but you'll see the whole list on our integrations page. We like I said, we don't replace the practice management tool. We work with them. And then we aim to just integrate with all of them, because then it opens up like more possibilities for the attorneys to build whatever sort of technology stack they want to build, right? Or what tools they want to use and want to work with.
And then you also integrate with the drafting platforms and Elder Counsel, Wealth Counsel, Interactive, Legal, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And then we have a Zapier integration, so people can kind of we've been slowly adding some more sort of triggers, like when something happens on the questionnaire, when the questionnaire gets submitted, right? That can be a trigger to do something in another tool. So yeah, and then we have some planned integrations with like payment providers like LawPay and Gravity Legal to click through and have the client pay their bill, like stuff like that.
Fantastic!
Round out the functionality of like this portal.
Amazing. Oh, well, Wouter, thank you for being our guest today. Finally, we got you on here. I've been hearing about DecisionVault for years now, I think, since beginning of the pandemic, and I know many of and you just want to talk to us about what your award you won at the ABA Tech Show for Startup Alley.
Yes. So I participated in the Startup Alley pitch competition, and that was, I think there were 60 applicants. They had a voting, online voting for about 40 of them. And then we were in the final 15 to pitch live on stage at the American Bar Association Tech Show in Chicago last month. And DecisionVault won second place.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
How exciting.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to put all the goodies in the show notes. And for our listeners, DecisionVault.com. I'll put all the social channels out there for you as well. Your link to your website, to your calendaring is here on your website, right? To book a call with you.
Yes.
See it here. So 2 options. Watch a demo on demand. I highly recommend you watch that before and then hop on a call to really streamline your time with Wouter and finding out about DecisionVault and his extraordinary growing team.
That's right.
All right. Until next time, come on, guys. It is all about automation. It is all about integration. It is all about freeing up your time, freeing up your support team's time in a place of efficiency and effectiveness, so you can practice law, so you can be a compassion-driven counselor in the conference room or the Zoom room with your clients, and really empower your team to become legal leaders leading legal leaders. So until next time, go forth, get on a call with Wouter here, and let's start talking about automation, because it's the biggest headache that we hear about and see within law firms, between that place of cradle to grave with the file and how can we streamline and automate it. We've reached the end of yet another episode of the Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast, where dream teams of entrepreneurs in an entrepreneur's world really do come true. Listen, whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, we fully understand hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, often overwhelming, and absolutely time-consuming for the already taxed professional. Well, we have your back on all fronts. For 25 years and counting, we have transformed over 4,000 law firm teams into the most efficient, resourceful, and profitable asset of your business. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.